Coming down to take a walk through the arena with us today. You'll see some changes once we get down to the floor, but I think the biggest thing is we're just excited to play. As you can imagine, with all the anticipation of the season and some of the players and so forth, and even though with injuries on the men's side of things, I think we're ready to kick off the season, men's and women's basketball both. So today we'll talk about how we're going to be able to do that. And we've taken you through many of the protocols we had for football, how to get that season kicked off, and what we did at the stadium. And today we'll flip to the Yum Center, and I'll go through some of this, and then Eric Granger will step in and give you the rest related to the safety protocols for fans and so forth. But for starters, happy to have the event named the Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic. Family friend, as much as a former player, former coach. Been involved with the community with Alice, his wife, and their family. They're great supporters of the university. Done so much. Obviously, on the team that had the first 3 African Americans on it was Sam Smith and Eddie Whitehead. And Wade's been around and been engaged with this program a long time and still is. And we were excited to reach out to him and request that he allow us to do this. And certainly, humbly, he said yes. So we'll be able to cover a lot of his background and history during the tournament, which I know Kenny Klein and team have done a good job pulling some things together, and we'll properly recognize Wade along the way. To pull this off, you got to have great partners, not just inside the athletic department, but with the Galt House next door. Again, a long set of protocols to be able to host the teams in the Galt House. The pedway coming across from the garage makes this a lot easier for us to pull off. They've been great. We tried to emulate as much as we can that word called the bubble. And they've been able to do that in many ways with the teams, the rooms, the eating areas, the meeting areas, having a floor down in the ballroom. Access to the practice floor here is key, but the Galt House has been great. So from food and safety and all those aspects, we should be in good hands next door. So the protocols, we get everybody here safe. We want them to stay safe and get through all the games that we have planned on the schedule, as you've seen so far with all the visiting teams. Here inside the arena, we'll have about 15% of the seats will be occupied. As you know, we've worked closely with the governor's office and with ASMG, with Eric's group that operates the facility on behalf of the Arena Authority. So we sold those lower bowl tickets out. We've done really well in our ticket sales, as you can imagine. A lot of interest for the limited amount that we have available. In the suites, we have about 10 that are available today. Companies that have those that may have policies that don't allow them the use of the suite has freed those up, and we'll sell those to others for this year. But the incumbent will have access to those suites again next season. So far so good on that aspect of it. Concessions, all the different protocols we'll get into, but I think we're ready to kind of get this thing going. And I know the coaches and the players are ready to get it going as well. The ticketing, while I'm on that, will be mobile ticketing. The concessions will be cashless. Much like we've done at the football stadium, we'll replicate that here in the Yum Center. So again, safety protocols throughout the facility. And I don't want to get into all those details. I'll leave that to Eric to talk about those. So Eric, you want to maybe step in and say a few? And then after this, we'll go down to the floor and talk about some of the other, the way the floor looks.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Eric Granger. I'm the general manager of ASM Global here in Louisville. In addition to managing the KFC Yum Center, I'm also proud to manage the Lynn Family Stadium, which had a very successful summer season starting in July under this very similar protocols that we're going to have today. Our fans will have a very similar experience when they come to our games because they're going to have a great time. They're going to relax and enjoy themselves. But there will be some things that will be different, as we know. Very similar to the experiences that they've encountered at Lynn Family Stadium or at Cardinal Stadium. When they first arrive, they will have their temperature checked. Anyone with 100.4 or lower will be allowed entry. If they're 100.4 or higher, I should say, they will be refused entry. Once they come in, their tickets will be scanned. They go through security as normal, except we are only going to allow clear bags this year at the KFC Yum Center. Clear bags only. That way, we're trying to eliminate all touch points, including for our own staffs. ASM Global, early on during the shutdowns, started working on how we could reopen our venues safely. So we developed a program called Venue Shield. Venue Shield is being used at all of our facilities around the world, working with local public health officials to make sure that our fans and our staff and those who put on our events feel safe coming back to the venues that we operate. And so we are here now, very excited about having basketball back at the KFC Yum Center. We're looking forward to welcoming the University of Louisville men's and women's programs, as well as all the visiting teams that are coming in. We'd like to thank our partners at the University of Louisville, the Galt House, and all the other partners that we work with to make this a possibility. Throughout the venue, as they're walking around, face masks are an absolute requirement to come into the venue. As at other venues where sporting events are taking place, we will enforce this. Anyone that's not actively eating or drinking will be reminded to please put on their face mask. After one reminder, they will be asked to leave the venue. We have to enforce these policies to ensure that we get to more games. Throughout the venue, we'll have markers on the floor that you'll see as we walk around that will promote physical distancing to make sure, again, everyone is safe. At our concession stands, as Vince said, it will be cashless operation, but in addition, we've placed plexiglass partitions to make sure that our fans are separated from the employees to promote that safety. All these things we're doing to make sure that everyone feels safe coming to the KFC Yum Center. Again, we look forward to having our fans back, having our student athletes back on the court, and making sure that we can show the rest of the world that events can take place if you operate them safely and you enforce the protocols that you have. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome to 2020. As you can see, we have a different floor setup for our home games this year. What you see is a setup that follows the protocols of the ACC Medical Advisory Group. So there's been a great deal of discussion around how the floors should be set up. And as you can see, where I am here to the first row is a little more than 15 feet, but we want 15 feet from the floor to the fans. Where you see the plexiglass surrounding the other side around the team, wraps it around. The plexiglass allows us to get fans up a little closer, so some will be looking through the plexiglass and rather than just open air like the seats behind you. That's a new change as well. The benches are distanced. You can see the seats are distanced as well. Obviously the coaches will be wearing masks, but also when they're on the seats, much like you saw in the NBA bubble, the seats are going to be distanced. Each team will be allowed up to 34 individuals that will be allowed in the court area. So those have been assigned. Kenny can provide you the details on that. That includes the roster, the coaches, all the support staff, administration if there is any, but 34 is the limit for that, and that's why you see some additional tables at the end of the court. Very limited. No cheerleaders, no band, just like we had in the past on the floor. We won't have that in, like football, we won't have that in basketball. You can see where we have some of the scoreboard that's limited there as well on who's going to actually be at the scoreboard area, or scores table, I'm sorry, over here. Some of the game, the media, this year will be a little bit different. They'll be calling games like Paul Rogers will be, and Bob Valvano will be in the corner versus being on the floor. So because of the limitation of personnel, there's been some of the media that's been shifted to other areas in the arena, and many of the media won't be traveling with the teams this year. They'll be calling games from home or from a studio, depending on the individual schools. It's permissive, but it's up to the individual schools and how that's being handled on the travel and so forth. So it's definitely got a different feel, different, unique setup, but it's still the basketball court's all intact. And I think from the players, the depth perception doesn't get reduced much at all from when they've practiced in here so far to when we start the season on Wednesday with the men, and then the women to follow on Sunday. As Kenny referenced, back behind the scenes, you'll see locker rooms a little bit different in terms of, like, when the visiting teams come in, we'll have different entrances. Where the staff comes in on entrances will also be designated. So protocols that the arena has set up for us and for the visiting teams will be adhered to as well. That's a little bit unique this year versus prior years. The tournament will allow only visiting teams that are in for the tournament, the MTE, the Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic, to sit up in the second deck if they so choose to come watch a game while they're in town. Otherwise, the second deck will not be used. Only the lower bowl will be used, the premium seats, the suites as mentioned before. So you can kind of get a sense of of what it's going to look like and how we're going to respond. But there's going to be a lot of breathing room, if you will, between the floor and the fans. That's a little bit different than what you've seen even in football. But every arena is going to look a little bit different. Not every arena has the flexibility of this arena. So if you think about Cameron Indoor Arena versus the Yum Center, you're going to notice when you see some of the away games when we play in the ACC, because of the age of the arenas, they've done some unique changes in their facilities to try to accommodate the distancing and that we've done here. So it won't look exactly the same, but you have to comply with the protocols that the ACC has set out.
Any questions? Just your takeaway the first time you saw it all set up, what was your initial reaction?
It's odd seeing the ice hockey glass, if you will, behind us. That's a little bit different, but you know, because the arena is so big, I think it doesn't have the 15-foot barrier around here is not as bad as what people think when they come. It's always a little bit of the shock when you see the seats and when they're taped off and you see where they are, and there's just not going to be as many people in a lower bowl for a basketball game, but we've experienced that in the football season as well.
Vince, can you talk about the capacity for 22,000 versus how many it's going to be?
Yeah, we'll be around 15%, so 3,000 or so that'll be the max capacity in here.
Is there a time frame that you are just kind of waiting, going back and forth with the governor?
No, we're settled on that. Yeah, through the Venue Shield program that Eric and his team put together, the governor has approved the 15% for both Rupp Arena and the Yum Center.
You guys have always had a unique home court advantage, 22,000 fans, most basketball leagues have 5, whatever. Just some thoughts about you're sort of losing a huge advantage for home games.
Yeah, I think the one thing we've learned with football is, as I've said this before, and it's not to be offensive to others, but those who come are really, I mean, they have a real zest for being here, want to be in here. We've noticed the fan noise from a smaller attendance at football has still been really strong. I mean, the football team has noticed it. Certainly you hear the piped in sound and so forth at football, but I think we're going to see the same thing here. There's going to be an energy in here to get the season started. And I think people are going to be excited to support their team. We've gone through so many protocols, and these kids have been through so much just to get to their first game here on Wednesday and Sunday with the women's team on Sunday. And I think the fans appreciate that, how hard they've worked and the protocols they've been through. It's been tough from a mental health standpoint as much as the physical side. So I know it's a big moment for us as a staff who support them to get here to have that first tip go.
Are you guys planning on pumping in crowd noise here like you do at football?
I don't think we're doing the same level that we're doing here. With basketball in the arena, there's not a need because of the size of the facility versus a stadium of 60,000.
Speaking of football, how much of the school's experience running football games has kind of gone into preparing for the basketball season coming up this year?
That's an awesome question, because I'll tell you what we're seeing. The schools that have not had football playing this fall are the ones that seem to be struggling the most. Not exclusively, but the most. And even teams that we originally invited to come here, they've had questions, even if they're still going to be here or not going to make it due to COVID. There's definitely a difference in what we're seeing in the schools that have had football, had protocols all summer, worked through the fall, and then get to this point. The conferences that are playing, it's definitely an advantage. You've learned the nuances of how to deal with it, and we've answered a lot of questions. Josh Hurd, our deputy athletic director, who's really put this whole thing together with Eric and others, has done a great job, but he's fielded so many questions, particularly from I'll say the schools that are not playing football this fall.
Have you talked to players about the setup? Are they excited to get started? Where are they coaching?
Yeah, the players are excited to get in here, just to even practice. I mean, just to get in the Yum Center, see the floor, which they now have this past week, and they're excited just to get out on the court and start playing. It's that time of the year where they're tired of scrimmaging each other. And in the men's case, well, in the women's case too, but particularly the men with the injuries, been scrimmaging other players. So they like to get out and compete in a regular game at this point.
How long will this setup be in place, or do you not know yet?
Well, the intention at this point is that this will be the setup for the full season. We don't foresee that the vaccine at this point, nor does our medical advisory group for the conference foresee that the vaccine would be here in time to eliminate this setup. So our hope is we get the whole season in, and this is a setup that we'll have from start to finish.
If things keep going the wrong way, is there a concern that you'll lose fans, that you'll be told no more fans?
Yeah, I think there's a concern from the very get-go. Even coming into football and where we are today, certainly moving from outdoor to indoor, there's a smaller capacity that's allowed in the indoor facility, although we've yet to see a spread in an athletic event across the country. There's not been, because I think the protocols to enter the facility, I don't think people for football, if they don't feel well, are going to go sit through a 4-hour football game. So they generally come healthy. The protocols are good when they get there. The protocols are good for distancing and otherwise, so they feel safe when they get there and when they leave. So I don't think it's ironic or coincidental that's happening. We would expect the same for basketball, that if people don't feel well, I think they know well enough at this point, 8-9 months into this, they're not going to come to an arena, put themselves and others at risk for a basketball game. But that concern for fans will be throughout the whole season.
Just talk about contingency plans if the game the day of gets canceled, or like the women's game this morning canceled for Wednesday, and what other plans you have of shuffling teams, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think you got to be really creative and nimble. I mean, we've been dealing with contingency plans for 8 months now. Travel plans, whatever it might be. Certainly schedule in basketball may be more fluid than football because of the number of games and how often they play within 2 or 3 games within a week may cause some issues if there is a COVID issue. So as a conference, I'm on the subcommittee for basketball for the ACC, and we've talked a lot about that. We'll talk about it again tomorrow in our AD meeting about making sure that we have good sportsmanship and adhering to the protocols, but also being flexible to the schedule, which most of us have in the conference today in football, and I'm pretty certain we'll be doing it again in basketball.
Do you feel like the women will get a game between now and Saturday?
As aggressive as Jeff is in managing his program, I'd be surprised if we can't get a game on the docket. I would say that just the idea that if it fits in otherwise for schedules, team may not have one. I would think they'd want to come play Louisville or us come play them at their place. That'd be a big coup to have the Louisville women's basketball team come play at their facility.
Is there a game for the men on Friday as well, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have 5 games. Wednesday, we'll play again Friday, we'll play again Sunday, and then next week we'll play December 1st and 4th. So we'll have Tuesday and Friday of the following week.
Is there a minimum amount of time you have to have between games for disinfecting protocols, things like that?
Well, for our games, when our season ticket holders will have access to the other games that day, so there won't be a need to turn the seats over because we're not going to turn the tickets over. It avails us the opportunity to not have to ask Eric's staff to come in and fully cleanse the facility between games. There'll be other areas that we'll change over during, but not in the fan area. We're going to keep that. If they come, that'll be their seat for the day.
Could one of you guys speak to, I saw the person spraying in here, but the place hasn't been used since March.
You want to talk about the cleaning process going on right now?
Thank you. Yeah, so even though we haven't had an event since March, you're correct. The last event was March 10th, the Lumineers concert. We're still treating it like we need to sanitize the entire facility. So we have these electrostatic sprayers, backpack sprayers that we'll use in the seating bowl and in the locker rooms, any large areas that we can spray very quickly, and it dries very fast to sanitize the areas. But we are treating it like as if we had an event yesterday, even though these seats haven't been touched in several months.
So you guys purchased your own electrostatic sprayer?
We did, yes. That's correct. We have sprayers. In addition to the sprayers, you have other protocols we've put into place in the facility, including increasing the air purification levels in our air filters. We've purchased all kinds of equipment that specializes in sanitizing, that meets all the CDC standards and exceeds them in many cases.
What about the staff size? Can you talk about staff size versus the normal game?
Well, it's going to be somewhat reduced in a lot of ways. Obviously, with less people, we have less concession stands. But we are going to open up points of sale to make sure we promote physical distancing wherever possible. So we'll have staff throughout the venue. We'll have security. In some cases, we've had to increase security because of temperature checkers, which we've never had before. But for the most part, it will be a reduced number of staff to make sure that, again, we have as much space in the venue for physical distancing. It's been challenging, but it's been something we've been looking forward to ever since that shutdown began back in March. it's exciting to be part of something, to be able to show the rest of the country that you can do something like this. You know, our staff were involved with the Lynn Family Stadium opening, and we saw the rewards of that. And so as soon as we were able to shift towards the arena, we jumped at the opportunity. And again, we appreciated the University of Louisville stepping up to say, let's do this together. And so it's been challenging, but we know that if we work hard, which we have been, it'll be very rewarding and it'll be great for everyone.
Obviously, Lynn Family Stadium is an outdoor facility, but how much of that playbook came into what you guys did here?
Well, it's a lot of the same protocols. You're right, there are some things that are different because it's indoors, but a lot of the same protocols are in place with the face mask, the temperature checks, the sanitizing protocols. So we've learned from that, certainly, and just, you know, where it needed to be fitted into an indoor facility, we have made those adjustments.
You guys have arenas all over the country and world. I don't know, though, how many have been in much operation. Have you been able to learn anything from events that have gone on elsewhere?
Yeah, we have, and you're right. We do have venues all around the world, and some have fans, some don't. Some events, some have events, and some don't. We only have vents, so we're lucky about that. But we certainly share information with each other. And I was saying the other day to someone that a lot of times venues are in competition with each other for event activity, especially when it comes to concerts or other events. And in this case, we're not. We're sharing information. We're learning from each other. And one thing that we have learned that I think is going to make us all successful is that the fans want it to be successful. They will come in. We learned this through the soccer games. They'll want it to be successful, and they'll enforce the protocols themselves to make sure we get to those next games. But we certainly are talking to each other and learning from each other. Okay. Thank you.
Could you, I don't know if you mentioned it up there, I know at the football games you're limited to, is it 8 or 10? What about seats here? How many per suite?
Yeah, you'll see that there are more seats of 4 here. You know, if you're seeing, like, if you look around where the tape is, where people are going to be split off, it's going to be seats of 2 or 4. Is that what you're asking, Stefan? Oh, and the 10. Yeah, 10 in the suites. Yep. It'd be limited to 10 there.